Welcome back to the Press Club. Before the break, we were talking about the Jafali affair, the latest fallout, the ruling by the judge in the case in the UK. Before we move on, I just want to reference the Article 31 of the Vienna Convention on Diplomatic Relations, 1961. Article 31 says a diplomatic agent shall enjoy immunity from the criminal jurisdiction of the receiving state. He shall also enjoy immunity from its civil and administrative jurisdiction, except in the case of a real action relating to private immovable property situated in the territory of the receiving state, unless he holds it on behalf of the sending state, in this case St. Lucia, for the purpose of the mission. That would not apply because this is private property and assets in the UK. B, an action relating to succession in which the diplomatic agent is involved as executor, administrator, heir, or legatee as a private person and not on behalf of the sending state. And C, an action relating to any professional or commercial activity exercised by the diplomatic agent in the receiving state outside his official functions. And part 2 of that article says a diplomatic agent is not obliged to give evidence as a witness.
Article B applies to the Jafali case, that his diplomatic immunity does not apply in that case because it involves private property owned by him and not owned by the state. And it is on that basis that I have been arguing, that former diplomats have been arguing, and I suspect the government of St. Lucia will argue that under the Vienna Convention, which controls diplomatic immunity and issues, this is the protocol for diplomacy. Under that convention, Dr. Jafali does not have diplomatic immunity before the British courts, and therefore if he doesn't have it, there is no requirement to raise it. That's what the government have said. You're asking the government to raise something that is not there to be raised. Now, Mr. Jafali, as an individual, obviously tried to use and to cite his diplomatic immunity, which the judges knew all along does not apply. What the judges are saying now is that your wife can take you to court, your ex-wife. This is all that has happened. Nothing has happened to test the legality of anything. Nothing has happened. But here we are having come to conclusions that it was wrong and the government is wrong and the country looks bad. I wanted to spend just a few seconds explaining how people get appointed to these international organizations. When St. Lucia joined the United Nations in 1979, as any country joining the United Nations, on becoming a sovereign state, you automatically become a member state, a member of all of the United Nations organizations. No country as small as ours and as underdeveloped or developing as ours can afford what it takes to be a full member with a full ambassador in each of those organizations. So in organizations that you become a member of, but of which there is no much work to be done, countries do that. They appoint somebody to that position. It happens everywhere. It happens in the United States. Somebody supports either of the parties. The winning party makes that person an ambassador without any experience. So the holding of a diplomatic post does not require diplomatic experience. I keep saying Dr. Edmonds, my good friend, was appointed in 1979 as ambassador to the UN, the US, and the OAS. He had never held a diplomatic post. He was a scientist known for his research into bananas. And therefore, what I think we are falling victim of is like in the Rochamel case. Questions are still being asked about the Rochamel case, whether it was right or wrong. But when we look at what has come out of the Rochamel case in terms of the Sandals grant and its contribution to the economy, the question can easily be asked, is Sandals grant and the contribution it makes to the economy today worth what was lost in the Rochamel case. Similarly, in this case, I'm saying that where our emphasis should be is not on whether the government was right or wrong in appointing Jufali, whether Jufali was right or wrong to try to use or to access his diplomatic immunity. I think where the emphasis should be and should remain is on what is St. Lucia government getting out of that. And the government has said that Jufali has promised the Caribbean's first diabetic research center and a film. My expectation would be that we would be saying on the government, make sure that man delivers before anything happened to him. And if, God forbid, it is done and critics feel that it is not worth, or it was not worth the so-called shame that St. Lucia went through, then they could feel free not to go to it. But I would hate to believe that a diabetic would want to consider whether that diabetic center, research center, is worth what it is on the basis of how it was achieved. That is how things happen. Like I keep pointing out to Gilbert Shaguri. Shaguri is our ambassador to UNESCO. We have never spent a cent at UNESCO. He pays himself, he pays the staff. He funded St. Lucia's campaign to have the Pitons recognized as a World Heritage Site. And he's still in the position. He was appointed by Sir John Compton, and he has succeeded throughout all of the administrations since then. So this is something that happens, and I want to underline the point that people sometimes should put themselves in Jufali's case and ask themselves what they would have done. And at the end of the day, the point I want to underline finally is that Jufali has not broken the law. He has not violated his diplomatic immunity under the Vienna Convention. He has not done anything illegal, and it is now up to the courts, the British courts, to decide on whether he will give his wife more than the £70,000 per month that he's already given her, whether he's going to give her more than life enjoyment for her and her daughter in London, whether he's going to give her more than the expensive apartment that he purchased for her in Beverly Hills, California. This is a lady who accepted a settlement, earlier, and now is seeking more. How St. Lucia gets involved, unfortunately, I think you and I and all of our viewers and listeners would have wished this never happened. When the Prime Minister introduced the CIP program, he indicated that this is something that years ago he would never have supported, but that in the circumstances of the nation today, everything has to be done to try to see how best money can be earned to replace the aid and assistance that no longer is coming from the developing world.
Speaking about doing unconventional things and making decisions that you hitherto might not have done, I know we hadn't discussed it before, but this week we heard that St. Vincent's Prime Minister, Ralph Gonsalves, was talking about exporting medicinal marijuana to Canada. Are we likely to see the St. Lucia government making a similar shift in the opinion on that?
Well, I would hope that Ralph Gonsalves, Dr. Ralph Gonsalves and Dr. Kenny Anthony, being the two longest serving CARICOM and OECS Prime Ministers alive and playing equally leading roles in the issues of marijuana and reparations, I would tend to believe that it would be just a matter of time before not only St. Lucia, but other Caribbean countries follow, because the marijuana situation is one where the entire world is looking to jump on that as the next frontier, the next oil, the next gold. The next war is going to be over marijuana. Bill Gates and all of them have secretly stacked up and invested into they have made investments preparing for the lifting of the prohibition, as they call it. They recall that when prohibition was ended, alcohol became available, and they were able to make a killing out of it, and they're looking to do the same out of marijuana. So I did hear what Ralph Gonzalez explained. One of his key points was that marijuana production is more friendly to the environment than bananas.
Yeah.
He also pointed out that while we might want to continue describing ourselves as or behaving like hewers of wood and drawers of water, the bigger states that have the means are moving faster, and when we can see the level of financial success that has attended the production, distribution, and marketing of marijuana in those U.S. states where it has been legalized, then it's a matter of us deciding, not a matter of if but when. It's like Zika. It's like Zika coming here. It's not a matter of if but when.
We do for another break, but when we come back, should the marijuana issue be an election issue? And we can look at some of the developments as far as the preparations for the next general election when we come back. This is the Press Club. We'll be right back.